Hi guys, it's Sydney
And Ava.
and we're here to read you a fun Christmas book. I'm wearing a nice and festive headband, just red with some sparkly antlers and some mistletoe at the bottom. The sparkles are red and gold and they're reversible, so it's super fun and ready for the holidays.
I am also wearing a fun and festive holiday headband. It is a red sparkly bow with little white snowflakes, and across the middle of it says ho ho ho.
Yeah, so today we're going to be reading How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr. Seuss. So let's get into
so
it.
So exciting.
How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot.
This picture, we see a tiny little Who from Whoville. He's very furry and he's holding a big wreath with his face in the middle, and the wreath has a big red bow tied around it.
But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be, perhaps, that his shoes were too tight. But I think that the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small.
Here's our first look at the Grinch in his cave. He's leaning against the wall of a snowy cave, and his eyes are a very light red, and he's also very furry and a little bit bigger than the Who's down in Whoville.
But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Who's, staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm-lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now, hanging a mistletoe wreath.
Here's the Grinch in his cave again, but he looks a lot angrier as he's looking all the way down at the houses in Whoville. He knows they're getting ready. There's a little forest with some trees and snow in between them, so we know that it's Christmas.
And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas, it's practically here. Then he growled, with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming, I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow, he knew, all the Who girls and boys would wake up bright and early. They'd rush for their toys. And then, oh the noise, 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 noise. That's one thing he hated, the noise, 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 noise.
Here we have a really busy page with all of the little Who girls and Who boys getting all of their presents on Christmas. We see a big Jack-in-the-Box and a bunch of red presents wrapped up in white ribbon. The Who's are riding on a train, a little bow and arrow with a target, some stilts, some tennis rackets and hammers, balls and nets, and every kind of toy you can imagine. A huge drum and a ginormous Christmas tree with a lot of ornaments and a star on the top.
Then the Who's, young and old, would sit down to a feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, 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 feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beef, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least.
Here's another busy page with all the Who's eating and having their feast. We see some chefs coming out with plates of nice, yummy, and warm food, and they're all sitting at a curved table. They're all at one table, and they all have their knives and forks, and the table is set for their meal, and they're ready to eat their Christmas dinner. And there's some red ribbon on the walls and a big wreath that has signs that say Merry Mary.
And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand, and the Who's would start singing. They'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing, 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 sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 30 years I've put up with it now. I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how?
And here the Whovilles are all holding hands in one ginormous circle. their eyes closed and their heads in the air, and they're all singing their Christmas songs.
Then he got an idea, an awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea.
Here's the Grinch looking very devious. He has his hands together in front of him, and he has a sly smile on his face. And there's a lot of exclamations around him to show that he just got an idea. Let's see what the idea is.
I know just what to do, the Grinch laughed in his throat, and he made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat. And he chuckled and clucked, what a great Grinchy trick. With this coat and this hat, I look just like St. Nick. All I need is a reindeer, the Grinch looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there was none to be found. Did that stop the old Grinch? No, the Grinch simply said, if I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max, then he took some red thread, and he tied a big horn on the top of his head.
Here's the Grinch getting ready to be Santa. He is looking in a full-length mirror. He has a red shirt on with a fluffy collar and arm and bottom and some white buttons and a Santa Claus hat. And we see some of the fabric and scissors and thread on the bottom that he's used to make the outfit. And then on the next page, we see the Grinch making his dog Max into a reindeer in his Santa outfit, and he's tying a big reindeer antler on his head. So let's see what he does.
Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on a ramshackle sleigh. Then he hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, get up, and the sleigh started down toward the homes where the Whos lay a snooze in their town.
Here's the Grinch with his sleigh, and he has some empty bags on the back, so I wonder what he's going to do with those. And he has Max tied up to the front, and Max looks a little worried about this, and they start on their journey into Whoville, through the snow and the trees, down towards the little houses at the bottom of the hill.
All their windows were dark, quiet snow filled the air. All the Whos were all dreaming sweet dreams without care. When he came to the first little house on the square, this is stop number 1, the old Grinchy Claus hissed, and he climbed onto the roof, empty bags in his fist.
And there he is on the top of one of the houses in Whoville. There's a ladder next to it, so we can see how he got up there, and he's right about to jump into that house's chimney. It seems like everyone in the house is sleeping, and Max is tied up to the sleigh outside still, looking a little sad, a little worried about what the Grinch might do.
Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch, but if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once, for a moment or two, then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where the little Who stockings all hung in a row. These stockings, he grinned, are the first things to go.
And here he comes. We can see him coming down the chimney, and the Who house is all decorated for Christmas with a big tree and presents under the tree, and some toys, and he's reaching up to grab the Who stockings off of the mantle, and above the mantle there's a Merry Christmas sign with another wreath, and in the next room we can see all the Whos tucked into bed, excited to wake up on Christmas morning.
Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant around the whole room, and he took every present. Pop guns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn, and plums. And he stuffed them in a bag. Then the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags one by one up the chimbley.
There's the Grinch, and he has all of his bags filled with all of the Who toys, and he's taking all the decorations down one by one and putting them up the chimney so he can steal them, and we still see all the Whos safely in bed, not knowing that the Grinch is taking all of their stuff.
Then he slunk to the icebox. He took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast beast. He cleared out the icebox as quickly as flash. Why, that Grinch even took their last can of Who hash.
And here's the Grinch, still in his Santa outfit, opening up the refrigerator door and stuffing his bags with all of their food and taking everything out of it. And in the background, we see the living room that's now empty with no Christmas decorations and the Who's asleep in bed.
Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee, and now, grinned the Grinch, I will stuff up that tree.
The Grinch has taken all of the decorations out of the living room, and all is left is the single tree with a couple ornaments, but no presents or decorations, and the Grinch is stuffing everything back up the chimney.
And the Grinch grabbed the tree and he started to shove, when he heard a small sound like the coo of a dove. He turned around fast and he saw a small Who, little Cindy Lou Who, was not more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter, who'd got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said, Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?
And here's the Grinch. He has partially shoved the tree up the chimney, but he's turned around. He looks surprised to see a tiny little Cindy Lou Who. She's wearing a pink dress, and her spot in bed is missing from her other Who family members, and she looks really surprised that Santa's taking all of their toys.
But you know, that old Grinch was so smart and so slick. He thought up a lie, and he thought it up quick. Why, my sweet little tot, the fake Santa Claus lied, there's a light on this tree that won't light on one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there, then I'll bring it back here. And his fib fooled the child, then he patted her head, and he got her a drink and he sent her to bed. And when Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went to the chimney and stuffed the tree up.
On this page, the Grinch is standing next to Cindy Lou Who and pointing at the tree with a smile and his eyes closed, and he's trying to calm her down and tell her a lie so that she'll believe that he's not actually stealing their tree. And she looks a little confused, but I think she thinks it's okay. And then he sends her back to bed, so she walks with her cup of water, and he gets ready to take the tree.
Then the last thing he took was the log for their fire. Then he went up the chimney himself, the old liar. On their walls he left nothing but hooks and some wire. And the one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse.
And now all we see is the big living room, but with no decorations, only some nails and wire on the wall. And the Grinch, just his hands are picking up the log so he can finally take everything. And in the corner we see a tiny little mouse looking at the crumb, the only thing that's left from what the Grinch took.
Then he did the same thing to the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who's mouses.
And it's the same kind of picture with just the Grinch peeking out of the chimney with a log in his hand, and he's looking at another tiny little Who mouse who looks so surprised that he has taken everything from all of the Who homes. It was 15:15 dawn, all the Who's still abed, all the Who's still a snooze, when he packed up his sled, packed it up with their presents, the ribbons, the wrappings, the tags, and the tinsel, the trimmings, the trappings. Now the Grinch's sleigh has a lot of stuff on it, has all of the decorations from Whoville, and he's going back up the side of the mountain with Max leading the sleigh, and he has things that say Merry Merry and all their presents, and a bunch of trees and toys and wreaths and bags filled with all of the Who's things, and he looks very happy and excited to go back to his cave with Max.
3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. Pooh-pooh to the Who's, he was Grinchishly humming. They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up, I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two. Then the Who's down in Whoville will all cry, boo-hoo.
And now the Grinch has made it to the very top of the mountain, and it looks like his sleigh is almost going to go over the side. He's pushing it with all of his might, and Max looks very worried, and all the way down, way at the bottom of the hill is Whoville. All the Who's are unsuspecting, still asleep, not knowing that the Grinch took all of their Christmas, and he looks very excited because the Who's will be very upset in the morning.
That's a noise, grinned the Grinch, that I simply must hear. So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear, and he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, then it started to grow.
And the Grinch is still trying to push the sleigh over the hill, but him and Max have their hands to their ears because they hear some sound coming from the bottom of the hill.
But the sound wasn't sad. Why, the sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so. But it was merry, very. He stared down at Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes. Then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise.
And here's the Grinch and Max's face up close, and they both look so surprised. And I see some musical notes coming from the bottom of the mountain. He looks extremely surprised of what he's hearing because he thought that the Who's would be upset and crying this morning.
Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or other, it came just the same.
And here's all the Who's down in Whoville again, even though none of them have any of their presents or food or Christmas decorations. They're all still holding hand in hand in a big circle, singing and very merry for the Christmas holiday.
And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons, it came without tags, it came without packages, boxes or bags, and he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more.
And the Grinch looks very confused, and he's standing there with Max, and they both look a little sad and trying to figure out how the Who's could still be excited for Christmas without all of their things that the Grinch took.
And what happened then? Well, in Whoville they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day, and the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light, and he brought back the toys and the food for the feast, and
Now the Grinch is going the other way, back down to Whoville, and he's riding super fast with Max pushing the sleigh, and he's blowing a horn on the top of all of the Whoville's things, and you can see all the Whovilles are awake now at the bottom of the mountain, outside their houses on this nice Christmas morning.
He himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast.
And there's the Grinch. He returned all of the Who's food and all of their decorations, and now he gets to have a Christmas feast with the Who's down in Whoville, and Christmas is right again. The end!
The end.